students. Welcome to the Biology Forum. Today we are going on to the next topic in our ongoing lecture series on chemical coordination and integration. Today's lecture series will be on an important gland in our body, the pituitary gland. There will also be a small addition in the end where we'll be talking about the thymus gland. So let's begin. Let's have a brief overview of what this lecture holds for us. We'll be speaking about the pituitary gland in general, the hormones of the pituitary, functions of each of these hormones, any abnormalities in the secretion of these hormones, that is the hypo and hypersecretion, and the thymus gland in the end of the lecture. So let's start. The pituitary gland is also called as the master gland because it controls most of all the endocrine glands in our body. The other name for pituitary gland is hypophysis. Where is it located? The pituitary gland is located in a bony cavity called the sella turcica, which is attached to the hypothalamus by a stalk. If you can see, this is the hypothalamus, there is a stalk, and this is the pituitary gland. And this pituitary gland is nestled in a space, a cavity called the sella turcica. The pituitary gland is divided into two lobes, the adenohypophysis, or also called as the anterior pituitary. This itself has two portions or two parts called the pars distalis, which we actually call the anterior pituitary, and pars intermedia. Now this pars intermedia in human beings is almost non-existent and it is almost fused to the anterior and the posterior lobes. And the second part is the neurohypophysis or the posterior pituitary. The other name for it is pars nervosa. So we have the pars distalis and pars intermedia, parts of the adenohypophysis or the anterior pituitary. Now you have to understand, hypophysis stands for the pituitary and adeno means a glandular part of the pituitary. Whereas neurohypophysis is the neuronal part, that is the part which is connected to the hypothalamus through the axonal endings. So we call it as the neuronal or the neurohypophysis. Now, hormones secreted by the hypothalamus are stored in the neurohypophysis. They do not secrete their own secretions, that is the hormones. The posterior pituitary or the neurohypophysis stores the hormone secreted by the hypothalamus. It is stored there and it releases it on stimulation. This is because the posterior pituitary is under the direct neural regulation of the hypothalamus. So let us have a brief idea about the hormones of the pituitary gland. The adenohypophysis, which I said is divided into the pars distalis and the pars intermedia. The pars distalis secretes the following hormones. The growth hormone, as the name is suggestive, it is responsible for the growth of the various cells in our body. Prolactin, which is useful for secretion of milk from the mammary glands. The thyroid stimulating hormone or the TSH. The name itself is suggestive. It stimulates the thyroid to secrete its hormones. The adrenocorticotrophic hormone, also called as the ACTH, a very important hormone. If you have to really split it up to understand how it acts, it is acting on the adrenal cortex. So the adrenal gland, which is placed over the kidneys like a cap, they are also endocrine glands in our body. It is having the central portion called the medulla and the peripheral region which is called as the cortex. So this ACTH basically is a trophic hormone, a stimulating hormone which acts on the adrenal cortex. So it is adrenocorticotrophic hormone or ACTH. We have the luteinizing hormone or LH and the sixth hormone, follicle stimulating hormone. So the anterior pituitary, if you see, secretes quite a few of these hormones. The pars intermedia secretes a hormone called the melanocyte stimulating hormone or the MSH. The posterior pituitary or the pars nervosa stores and releases two hormones, the oxytocin and vasopressin, also called as the anti-diuretic hormone. Now the anti-diuretic hormone, if the name is suggestive, we can understand. Diuresis means passing copious amounts of urine. Now, anti-diuretic hormone means it brings about anti-diuresis, so it prevents this release of excessive urine. Yes. Now let us see the abnormalities of secretion and the functions of the various hormones of the pituitary gland. To begin with, we'll start with the growth hormone. Name itself is suggestive. It is needed for the growth of various cells in our body. So if there is an over or hyper secretion, definitely there will be more growth hormone being released into the blood, which will be stimulating the cells. So there will be hyper, or the growth will be out of control. You will get a very oversized individual called as, this condition is called as gigantism. So there will be giants, you can see. In adults, if there is over secretion, especially around middle age, it will cause a severe disfigurement of the face where the jaw grows beyond proportion, and this condition is called acromegaly. You can see this condition here. This is a typical acromegaly face. This is how the person will look. If there is undersecretion or hyposecretion, so growth hormone is less in the circulation, so the growth of cells will be severely hampered. In such a case, the person will be not be growing as per requirement. So what you will have dwarfs, which is called as pituitary dwarfism. Prolactin, the other hormone from the anterior pituitary, regulates the growth of mammary glands and also helps in milk formation. So if there is hyper or hyposecretion of prolactin, milk formation will be severely affected. Next, we'll talk about TSH, that is the thyroid stimulating hormone. It stimulates the synthesis and secretion of thyroid hormones T3 and T4. ACTH or adrenocorticotropic hormones stimulates the synthesis and secretion of steroid hormones, especially glucocorticoids from the adrenal cortex. So when we will be talking about the adrenal glands, you will have a very good idea about what glucocorticoids mean. The luteinizing hormone or LH stimulates the secretion of androgens from the testes. And FSH and LH together, that is the follicle stimulating hormone and the luteinizing hormone together, regulate spermatogenesis, that is sperm formation in males. The luteinizing hormone in females causes ovulation. It is responsible for ovulation, whereas the follicle stimulating hormone is needed for the growth and development of the ovarian follicles. This is an important part in the female reproductive system, and it is needed in the menstrual cycle and for reproduction. So these hormones play a very important role in the process of reproduction. Right, we'll move ahead with the MSH. If you remember, the pars intermedia secretes this melanocyte stimulating hormone. So the name itself is suggestive. It stimulates or acts on the melanocytes. Melanocytes are melanin containing cells present in our skin, which are necessary for the color or the pigmentation of the skin, and it regulates the pigmentation of the skin. Oxytocin. Now we are going on to the posterior pituitary or the neurohypophysis. Oxytocin is one hormone which shows its action on the smooth muscles of the body, and it stimulates their contraction. So it is very, very important hormone during childbirth, because in females it is useful during childbirth for the contraction of the uterus. This facilitates the childbirth and helps in the delivery when the uterus, which is a muscular sac-like organ, it actually contracts and releases the fetus. And after the delivery, this oxytocin also acts on the smooth muscles of the mammary glands for milk ejection from the mammary glands. Another important fact about oxytocin is that it is an important hormone which plays a very important role in triggering the emotional, the feelings in a mother post childbirth, the feelings of maternal love are because of oxytocin, which is released after during childbirth and after childbirth. So it not only helps in contraction of the uterine muscles for facilitating delivery and the contraction of the mammary glands for milk ejection, it also helps in developing the maternal emotions and maternal feelings of love for the baby after childbirth. Vasopressin, or anti-diuretic hormone, acts mainly on the kidneys, because kidneys are our excretory organs from where the urine is formed and excreted. It stimulates the resorption of water. So water will be reabsorbed, and even electrolytes, by the distal tubules of the kidneys. Hence, that is the nephrons. Hence, it is also called as the anti-diuretic hormone, or ADH. Now, if there is deficiency of ADH, if there is less ADH produced, then what will happen? There will be excess, because there will be no anti-diuretic action. So there will be excessive loss of water in the form of copious amounts of urine, which will be very watery. And there will be dehydration also, because a lot of water is being lost from the body. This condition is called diabetes insipidus. That means diabetes, that is polyuria, large amount of urine is excreted, and insipidus means it is insipid urine. A lot of watery urine is excreted out of the body, and the person will be dehydrated. This is a little different from diabetes mellitus, which is another hormonal imbalance, insufficiency, where you will see mellitus, diabetes, that is, there is polyuria there too, large amounts of urine is passed, but you will see that the urine has sugar in it. So it is mellitus, that is honey, it's sweet urine, whereas here it is diabetes insipidus, large amounts of insipid urine or watery urine is passed due to deficiency of the anti-diuretic hormone, or vasopressin. Yes. Now we come to the another endocrine gland, which is generally not much talked about, but it's also an important gland, called the thymus. Where is it located? It is a lobular structure located between the lungs, behind the sternum or your breastbone, on the ventral side of the aorta. So just in front of the aorta. It plays a major role in the development of our immune system. So an important contribution of the thymus is to the immune system. It secretes peptide hormones called thymusins. Now, what do the thymusins do in our body? The thymusins play a major role in the differentiation of the T lymphocytes for cell-mediated immunity. So when I have talked about WBCs and especially the lymphocytes, and we have T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes. When I talk of T lymphocytes, this lymphocytes from the thymus. So thymus plays a major role for cell-mediated immunity. They also promote production of antibodies for humoral immunity. This gland generally degenerates and the function starts reducing in old age, and that is why our immunity in old age starts reducing because of this very fact. Hope you have understood very clearly about the pituitary gland, the various hormones that are secreted by the pituitary gland, and also about the thymus. If you have any doubts, please ask your questions in the comment section. I will definitely answer them. Please keep watching for the next part of the endocrine system, so that the entire topic of endocrines and chemical coordination is clear. Thank you.